All right. Well, welcome everybody to our August Tug. I'm Chris Monahan. I'll be your MC today. We got a great event planned for you. So let's go ahead and get started. First of all, welcome back. I know we took a little break in July. Everybody hopefully is energized, had a great vacation, great summer. And we got a lot of great events planned for you the back half of the year. So I can't wait to share those with you. So as always, before we get started, I'd like to thank everybody in our advisory council. These are the folks that help put on this event every single month. All these folks do everything from help with scheduling, get our speakers, doing the events, and they just do a tremendous job. If you are interested in joining our council, please reach out to myself or someone on the advisory council. We need folks that are enjoy doing social media, networking, helping get speakers. So if you have a talent for something like that, please reach out to us. We're a great council. We meet every 2 weeks virtually on Zoom to help do the planning, and then we meet once a quarter in person to do a dinner. So it's a lot of fun and just a good way to get back to the Tableau community. So here's our agenda for today. I'm going to do a little housekeeping events, talk about housekeeping and just some general events. And then we have our featured speaker, Pulley, who is the reporting and visualization manager from Lloyd's. And he also is a Tableau public ambassador. And he's got an awesome presentation for you guys. It's animation, interactivity, and ridiculous ideas. So if that title that's not a hook, so stay tuned. I mean, I don't know what is. It's going to be awesome. So, and then after that, we have a network breakout session, as always, and it's Ask Anyone Anything About Tableau. So this is a great way. Just stay on after our presentation, and virtually we're going to meet and do a little bit of introductions. And then if you have some questions, anything about Tableau, about adoption, some technical questions, things like that, this is the place to get those answered. So general reminder that this meeting format is virtual. We'd like to see your faces. So if you like, please go ahead and share your video. Please stay on mute though, because this is a Zoom meeting. If you have any questions, please DM them to Homer. He's our co-host. Homer will collect those, and then after our speaker presents, we'll have a Q&A session, and so we can share those with the rest of the group. We also have a YouTube channel, so if you happen to miss one of our events, tune into our YouTube channel. We got everything there, and we have got some past presentations as well with some great speakers, so it's definitely something to check out. Some general announcements. We have a September Tug next month. It's going to be September 12th, 3:30 to 5. It's in person as well as hybrid. We do one of these a quarter. If you have an opportunity to make it, please make it. It's a great way to meet some of the folks that are in the community. You get to meet in person. We also do a happy hour right afterwards. This is very special because it's been a little bit of while because they've been renovating the Salesforce office in downtown Austin, but now we're bringing our Tug events back to the office. So as you can tell, I'm here in the office today. They got a great space, great place for us to meet up. So please check out the invite. It'll be up on our events page here next week, and we'll send out invites, and we would love for you guys to join us. We also have an October Tug coming up as well, and as well as November. And then in December, as a reminder, we have our in-person holiday get together. So like I said, a lot of great events coming up the back half of the year. Also, I would like to just remind everyone that Dreamforce is right around the corner. If somehow you missed the emails, I'm sure you've been being sent. It's coming up September 17th through 19th. It's not too late to check it out. If you can't be there in person, it's still shown virtually, and it's a great way not only to see what exciting things are coming up in Salesforce, but there's a Tableau portion of that where they share a lot of the exciting new features that are also coming out in Tableau. So if you get a chance, at least check it out on the web and stay tuned. So. And then lastly, we have a Slack community. I think we've mentioned this before in the past. Here's our channel here. We'll send you a link so you guys can join. It's a great way to just sort of share ideas, ask questions about things, and just be a part of our virtual community online. So if you get a chance, go ahead and register for our Slack community. So without further ado, I'd like to introduce our featured speaker, Pulley, who is the reporting visualization manager from Lloyd's Bank. banking and group, and he is a Tableau public ambassador, runs the Tableau public tug, and he's also had 4 Vises of the Day and 3 Visi Awards, which is very, very impressive. So with that, Ant, I will turn it over to you.
Thank you very much. Let me just share the screen. Hopefully that is all good for you.
Yeah, we're good.
Great. Cool. Thank you very much. So yes, my name's Ant Pulley. I'm obviously not from Texas. I'm from the UK in London, and I'm very happy to be here to talk to you about animation, interactivity, and ridiculous ideas. One of which you can see on the screen at the moment. A little bit more about me. So that's a different version of me sat in front of a tree. Yes, I work as a reporting visualization manager for a bank in the UK. I've been using Tableau probably for 7 or 8 years, and I've been using it publicly on Tableau Public for about 4 years. Technically 5 because of the days. I got one a couple of days ago, so that was new news. That was quite a surprise. So yes, and I've won the Visi Award, which is an award given at the Tableau conference, a community voted award for the WTF. I never knew Tableau could do that award for 3 years in a row, and you'll probably realize why as we go through this presentation. I'm currently doing my second stint as a public ambassador. I co-lead another Tableau user group, the Tableau Public user group, which has a session next week, so come along, that'll be fun. And I've also joined the Games Night Viz community initiative. If you don't know what that is, it's a bit like Makeover Monday, but for computer game data. So we produce a load of data sets around video games and ask people to produce sort of fun vizzes on it. That's me, sort of my personal life. I live in a county called Hertfordshire in the UK, which is just north of London. That's my wife Jen and my 2 daughters who are 7, 18 months. And as well as visiting, I'm also a saxophone player. I play in a few jazz bands. I've got a black belt in Taekwondo, although that's probably a bit lapsed now. And I do play a bit of tennis, so a bit of variety as well as visiting. And got my sort of details there. If anyone wants to sort of link up with me afterwards, then please do. So what I'm going to start off with, I'm going to go through a few examples of sort of things I've done on Tableau Public with animation interactivity, and then I'm going to dive into Tableau for a bit and just go a bit more technical into some of the stuff I've done, just to sort of show you some of the tricks and things that go on. First things, so I've called it animation interactivity and ridiculous ideas. Often they all sort of blend into the same thing, but I want to show a few examples around pages. So I use the pages shelf quite often to do certain types of animations. This is one of the ones I did. It was a Makeover Monday from a while back, where I've used pages to sort of animate a polygon over time. So generally when you're using a pages shelf, you're using it with a date because you want to see something changing over time. And this was just a fun viz showing how CEO to worker compensation rates had varied over time. Another way of doing it, slightly more ridiculous, was an octopus, and actually using pages to animate an octopus, or what I like to call the relaxing octopus, because I find him quite relaxing to watch as he sort of breathes in and out. So just you're starting to see where the ridiculous ideas are coming in here. Then we've got animation and interactivity. So away from pages, I like playing around with adding buttons, adding interactivity to sort of change the view and animate things around. This is an example of the lives and reigns of the British monarchy. So obviously we had the Queen passed away not long ago, and she was the longest reigning Queen we've ever had, and they were likely to have. So it was a good time to sort of build this kind of viz with lots of buttons, lots of fun animation. And then when I hit 100 vizzes on Tableau Public, I did this animated viz, which basically uses one parameter to walk you through a bit of a silly story of all different things about the number 100. So just really playing around with, can I do that in Tableau? Can I make it do different things? Interactivity, so it's not all animation. One of the very first vizzes I really sort of went to town on was this one, which was again a Makeover Monday a few years back, about Nintendo sales, and I just went to town on parameters, pressing buttons, making it a real sort of fun viz that's obviously hopefully you know what that is. It's a Nintendo Switch, which I've built in Tableau loads of, this was before any kind of show hide containers, dynamic visibility or anything. So it was very heavily layered, lots of floating stuff, but it was great fun, and I'd sort of really enjoy doing that kind of thing. But I've done some more sensible things with it as well. This is something I did on my Twitter data. I pulled a load of my Twitter data and I made sort of a more of a businessy type interactive dashboard where you can sort of click and change things. I don't tend to go that far into business stuff on Tableau Public. I do that all day, every day, but occasionally I'd sort of throw something out there. And finally, ridiculous ideas. You've already seen some which are there, but yeah, I like just doing things silly. So this is one I did on flipping pancakes. It was a survey on what the UK likes putting on their pancakes on Pancake Day, and I just like the idea of how can I make it so that it feels like you're flipping a pancake, and it sort of worked. There's a lot of sort of trickery in that one to get it to happen. This one comes out every Christmas as a decorate your own Christmas tree. So you can choose to put some baubles on it. You can choose to make some tinsel, put a topper, put an angel on top. It also uses pages. You can add some lights to it and they flash green and white or whatever. So very much a sort of silly fun thing to do, but lots of technical stuff behind it to get that to work, which can be transferred to sort of other areas. And then, I don't know, you may have seen this one before. This is probably one of the ones I've did, which is more famous than others, and that's essentially building a game in Tableau. So I had a challenge to build a Mario viz. I don't know if you know when Mario Day is, but it's March the 10th because Mar 10 spells Mario, so that is Mario Day. So I had a challenge to build this from a colleague. Can you build a viz for Mario Day? And I just thought, for some reason, do you remember those plastic slide puzzles you used to have back in, I don't know, the 80s and 90s? Can I just build something like that in Tableau that actually animates quite smoothly? And I managed to make it work. It's on the edge. This workbook is on the edge of not working. If I do anything else to it, it sort of falls apart, but it works pretty well. I just don't touch it ever again. But again, I'll bring this out every year because people seem to like it. And then I just added this one in. It's not really a ridiculous idea, but this is the Viz of the Day I got on Tuesday this week. It's part of the Games Night Viz initiative I'm in. The idea, I guess, itself isn't particularly ridiculous. It was looking at ingredients used in in-game recipes for Zelda Breath of the Wild. But perhaps the ridiculous element of it is I decided to look at goat butter specifically and just make a bit of a silly story about where that sits in terms of the network. So I like doing different things. I like trying different things in Tableau. So with that in mind, I'm going to jump into Tableau and go through a few other things and just show you a few little bits and pieces. I'm going Christmassy again, just because it's a good use of pages. So this is something I built. Was it last Christmas? I think it was last Christmas. Called Rudolph the Red-Nosed Reindeer. And sorry, I'm just trying to get this back to the first page. And I like playing with music data as well in Tableau. I like the fact you can get a MIDI file and you can use some Python or some R to sort of pull out the MIDI elements of a music file and then present it on the screen. I think that's quite fun. So I played around with that a few times, but I thought I wanted to do something where I can almost make a sing-along version of a tune and put it on Tableau. So I did it with a very simple, because it gets very complex if you use very complex tunes, but I thought I'd use Rudolph the Red-Nosed Reindeer. Why not? So this one uses pages. You hit play. The top section gives you the tune. You don't get much control over the speed. So this is going, you either have it slightly too fast or slightly too slow. But the idea is you get your tune appearing along the top, Rudolph the Red-Nosed Reindeer, and then you get your sort of prompts of what to sing at the bottom. So I thought this was quite a fun thing to do. There's a few bits to it which are a bit tricky and perhaps that were a bit unusual. So I'm just going to take you through how I built sort of that top chart, just to show how the sort of pages animation can work. So the data set behind this is very simple. It's just five columns. I've got a word column, which contains the element of the word that sits on a particular beat. I've got an ID, and that's just the the stage of the music I want to be in. I've got note placement, so that is how the pitch of the note, where I want to place that note. And I've got a few other bits which are to do with how I display the word prompts. So it's relative. Oh, and my video is spotlighted. Can you still see my screen, all right?
Yeah.
Yeah, cool. Okay, just checking. So just to build this viz, I want to put ID on columns because my ID is the point in time I want to show. The note placement is where the note sits on, if you're musical, the stave, but essentially the higher it is, the higher pitch the note is. And what happens when you drag the two in like this, they sum them up, they aggregate the measures, which is not what I want. I want to see all the individual measures. So what I can do there is just go to analysis and uncheck aggregate marks, and then I get the whole score, if you like, of Rudolph the Red-Nosed Reindeer that goes all across there. So that's essentially the chart I want to animate. That's what I want to sort of see jump up and down. So in order to do that, I just need to move ID into filters. No, not filters. That was silly. Into pages. I'll just put it in as ID. And what that does is uses that ID field as a page. So when you walk through the pages, you just show that slice of the data. It shows that bit of page going on. But what I want to do is have the history shown. So I want to increase the history each time the beat changes. So in theory, I can just click show history, and that should work. Let's see if it does. Of course, it doesn't. It wouldn't be that intuitive. It doesn't work for some reason. Even though I've checked show history, if you go into the options, I want to see all the marks. I want them to be a certain color, but it's not showing them. I bashed my head against the wall a little bit around this until I worked out what was going on, and it's actually to do with the animation settings in this screen. The animation by default in Tableau is turned on, but actually that messes up what I'm trying to do here in the pages shelf. So if I go into Format, Animations, you'll see this page, it's turned on. If I just turn it off, suddenly all my history is there. Super. So now that's it. That does now what I want it to. Very quick to do. If you didn't know that, then you assume it just doesn't work. So once it's in, that works exactly as I want it to. And what I've done is I've just told it I want to see the whole history. I want to format the historic points. I want them to be a bit more transparent than the one that's appearing, just to give it a bit of visual difference. And that's essentially how that page works. It's quite easy. Now it's quite fun. You can play around with this. It's quite cool because you can have history marks. You can also have trails. And what trails will do is essentially turn it into a line chart. Ironically, if you try and make it a line chart here, it won't work. It just goes to dots. So if you want to make a line chart with pages, using a circle with trails is the best way to do it. You can also do some fun stuff like maybe just showing the last 10 points. I quite like this because it's given me a bit of an idea, which I haven't done yet. There must be a viz I could do around Snake from the Nokia phones. If you all had the Snake game, this just feels like it sits nicely there. So maybe one day I'll build a Snake game using the pages shelf. So I just wanted to go through that because there's a few funnies there which should be obvious, but they don't always make sense. And then this bit at the bottom is quite straightforward. The underscores, as I've called it, are just marks. So if I go into the underscore sheet, all that is a load of marks which I've just positioned in a certain way. And the words one is the same. It's just a load of words, except they're white text, so you can't see them there. And then what you can do with pages is once you've got a page control on the page, you can choose to sync it. And if you sync it, it means those two, if you're using the same field from the same data set, then it means you can sync the two pages together so that they will run together, which is really cool. So that's all I wanted to talk to you about Rudolph. What I will say is the speed settings are a bit odd. I mentioned it already. So on desktop, you get 3 speed settings, which is sort of ridiculously slow. slightly too slow and slightly too fast. I couldn't find one that's nice in the middle. When you publish it to Tableau Public or Tableau Server or wherever, you don't get any control at all, and it sort of just runs at whatever pace. So it doesn't matter what you choose here. When you publish it, it will just run at whatever pace, and that tends to be somewhere between slightly too slow and even more slow. So you can't really sing along to it, but it's the thought that counts. So that's my first example around pages. My second one is similar.
Hey,
So I
Ann,
show. Yes.
can you go back? I'm going to break protocol here and ask you a question on this because
No, no
Yeah, what are you
problem.
doing, Homer? This is
yeah,
our episode.
I'm being a rebel here. I'm abusing my power. But just musically, Rudolph has a bridge in it. So when you get to that part, where it says, "Then one foggy Christmas Eve," it's a different tune. So
Yes.
now you're overlaying, a different tune on top. Do you care about that, or is this just not important?
It's it's a different tune. I mean, it just forms part of a sort of a long series of notes, I suppose. So
Okay.
it's all there. The way I built this data, I essentially built it by hand. I just went through and sort of went in my head, this is the pitch of each note. So I could
But
maybe bring it out a bit more in the viz, but for what I was trying to do, it doesn't really matter.
but if you actually played it, then you'd have two tunes on top of each other, right? And they'd be superimposed.
No, so the
The bridge
bridge,
and the verse.
so the verse is all here, and then when I'm trying
Yeah.
to get it to the right point, don't know what point it is. So foggy, for
Yeah,
example.
there.
So then one foggy. That's that bit there. So
Okay.
it's just following on from the previous verse. Apologies for my singing.
And each dot is only the pitch. It's not the length of the note.
It's not. It's the start of the note. I haven't put it as the length.
Okay.
So it will appear at the right time. So there will be gaps after the note until the next note comes. But I didn't put it long, if that makes sense. Because
Yep.
a lot of when you're singing Rudolph, it's often quite clipped. You wouldn't necessarily. To be fair, I didn't go that deep into it. It was into the science
Thanks, Homer.
behind it.
All right. Thank you.
Yeah, thanks.
No worries. So I'll jump into the next one. So this is another pages animation. This is slightly different, whereas the previous one is animated, but it's not sort of smooth animation. You're not doing smooth transitions. This one's a bit different. I'm smoothly. Oh no, I'm not, because I've broken it already. No. If I go to my public one, I'll show you how it looks. It's a smooth animated transaction. Okay, you're gonna make me reconnect. Fine. So when I press play, it essentially moves very slowly between one state and another state, rather than like a flip book style. You just look at one piece after another, and there's not much to it really. In the previous one, when I hit unaggregate my measures, what I actually want to do in this one is to aggregate them again. So now I've got my sum measures. All I've got here, all this is a line. It's a line chart, just a slightly bizarre line chart. So all it's got is two fields that create the x-axis and the y-axis. I'll show you what the y one looks like. It's more hideous looking than it actually is, but it uses the sine function to create sort of the wave of the lines. But all I'm doing here, there are 8 pages in this data set, and all I'm doing is for every odd page, I am putting in a set of coordinates, and for every even page, I'm putting in a different set of coordinates. So this is page 8, that's an even page, so that is my yawning octopus, whatever you want to call it, and then 7 page is sort of the octopus when he's breathed out. So it's just transitioning between those two states, one after the other. And the reason you have to put aggregate your measures on this one is if I went and changed page, you sort of get what you saw earlier, this sort of weird, hideous octopus monster thing appears in between the transitions, which I don't want. Whereas if you aggregate your measures, you're telling Tableau you want those measures to be summed up on the screen. They're not discrete points. It means it can manage that transition between the two. So that's what I've done there. It's probably a lot more complicated than it seems. Essentially, it's a load of coordinates, and you're just switching between one and another to get this view. And the reason I've done what you can do in desktop, they've got a loop playback option, which means you can hit play and it will just go through page 1, page 2, page 3, then go back to page 1, page 2, page 3. So in theory, on desktop, I just need 2 pages and I can just loop between the two. The reason I put 8 is because on Tableau Public, when you publish it, you lose that ability to do loop. So if you want it to run a little bit longer, you need to sort of duplicate the pages in order for it to work. So that's the only reason I've got 8 pages worth of data. So that's relaxing octopus. Only other thing to mention really is in desktop, you'll see my controls look a bit odd. They're sort of in a strange position in this white circle. Again, that's because when you publish to Tableau Public, it renders differently. You lose the speed controls and it changes the rendering of the play buttons. So it was a bit trial and error to get it so that it loaded so that those buttons are in the center of the circle. Very silly little things, but when you spend all this time working on it, then you publish it and you notice something's gone awry, it can be a bit frustrating. But if you know about it, you can obviously deal with it. So that's my relaxing octopus. I think I'll just pick, yeah, I'll do example 3. So lightsabers. I built this one for a bit of fun. That's silly, really. They're all a bit of fun. What this is a viz of lightsabers, and it's telling you the primary user of each lightsaber color. And the idea of it is you can click on the buttons and the lightsabers turn on and off. I've put add your own sound effects in the subtitle because it's got to be in your head. You've got to be saying it when you're clicking them. So that's all it does. It's a very simple viz, but it uses a few techniques that I use quite a lot with animation. So I thought I'd just go through them. So I've got a little sheet here called One Saber, where I've just filtered it down just so I can show you what's happening in terms of animating this lightsaber. So what you've got here is a very basic lightsaber. It's set. I've got a parameter which is called P character, which drives which lightsabers are on and off. And at the moment it says Darth Vader. If I delete that, it disappears. And if I put it back in, then it opens again. So I'll just show you what's happening. If I show the header for my columns, what I'm doing here is something I do quite a lot when I'm doing animating, is fixing my axis. Because if I fix my axis, it means I can sort of hide stuff or bring stuff in off the canvas. So what I've done here is I've fixed it at 0.5 so that you don't see the curved end of the line. So if I go and make that minus 0.5, for example, you'll see that all this is a line. It's just a line that I'm sort of extending and closing based on a parameter. So if we look at the data behind it, again, it's quite a simple data set. I've got the character name. There's a few calculated fields. I've got the color of the lightsaber. And then I've got some XY coordinates. And I've got 2 rows for each character because I need a start point for my line and I need an end point for my line. Now the start point for the line is always going to be 0, 0 because they're always going to start at the same point. And depending on what's in my parameter, the end point will either be 1 or it will be 0. So the lightsaber will be on or it will be off. So that's why when Darth Vader is within my parameter, this is switched to on. So if I go to my, right, so it was also in map players, but we'll discuss that shortly in a bit. Update X. So update X is what's driving this animation. So I've got, when it's an end point, so I've got a type in my data set which says, am I at the start or the end of a line? If that endpoint contains, if that parameter contains the character, then put X, which the endpoint will be 1. If not, then put 0. So if Darth Vader is within the P character, then put your endpoint, which is 1. Otherwise, set it as 0, so it switches off. Hopefully that makes sense. But that's essentially what it's doing. It's looking into the parameter and saying match that against the character name. So when I delete it, it goes back to just 1 point when I've not fixed my axis. So let me just fix it back to 0.5 again. And I'll turn it back on. There it is. What I've done, I'm not going to go into map layers because that gets a bit tricky, but I've used map layers on this, which is a way of using more than one or more than two mark types on a chart. So obviously traditionally you're restricted to just having a dual axis where you can have two things. You can sort of hack map layers, which has an infinite number of layers you can use on a chart. And I've used that in this particular viz purely to make that sort of neon style of the lightsaber. So if I turn on my other layers, this is sort of the base layer. It's like a fairly muted red color. I could put on the next layer. It's the same line, but it's a slightly lighter color. You can see what's going to happen next. I put the next one, it's slightly lighter again, and then I've almost got like a pretty much a white line that goes in the middle, and that just I thought was quite a cool effect just to get that lightsaber effect. And therefore, yeah, nice and simple one to do. This viz here is quite simple. It's just some images I've imported, and everything's driven off this viz. So this is where my parameter actions are run off. So this is where I say change the parameter to add Darth Vader or whatever it might be. So that's lightsabers. I'm keeping an eye on time, so I'm not gonna go too far into some of these, but I'll just show you.
You're doing okay. Yeah.
Am I doing all right? Okay.
Yeah, you're fine.
Oh, the last two, I'll just do this one because this is the more interesting one, or it's a silly one. So does anyone here play computer games? There's a set of games called the Souls games, which are notoriously difficult games where you basically die a lot and have to get really good and stuff. I wanted to do a sort of silly version of that with Tableau, but really it was to sort of experiment with like a menu system. I wanted to have like an animated carousel menu. So if you ever play role-playing games, or use certain websites or whatever, you click a button, the hat will sort of animate across their head, whatever it is. Now what I'm going to do is I'm going to show you what happens here, and this is to my point a bit earlier. I'm going to click that, and you'll see the color changes, but there's no animation happening. And this is an interesting one. So this is, I'll show you this on public, because this is the same viz on Tableau public with no particular difference. But if I click it here, this is what should be happening. So I click this, the helmet's changing. If I click this, the body's changing, the shoes are changing, whatever. I just wanted to highlight that because sometimes animations will stop when you're not expecting them to in Tableau. Everything you've done should be right, should make sense. But sometimes you'll hit sort of a ceiling where they stop working in Tableau desktop. I think for this one, it's probably to do with the custom icons I've imported, so maybe they're too big and it's a bit too much memory for sort of Tableau to deal with, at least in desktop. But if you're ever coming across that in desktop where your animations stop working, it's probably worth publishing it on server or cloud, wherever you are, just to see if it is working on cloud. It's a bit of a pain, but it's one to shout out. Just to finish off what you do with that viz. So the whole point of this viz was purely to do this menu system, but I did add an element of the game into it. So you click start, you get to your first screen, you see your first enemy, what you're going to do. It looks really easy. I'm going to attack. So you hit attack, and you died. That's it. That's the viz. But that's basically what happens in the Souls games, at least when I'm playing them. So
I like it. Yeah.
So that's that viz. What I'll do, I'll just top it up with the end of my presentation and let me know if I've gone too long. Ridiculous ideas. I was just going to talk a bit about where they come from. So I've got a big list in a OneNote of random one-word ideas, things that have come to mind. There might just be stupid things. They might be really interesting things. A few examples. I've got one: seesaw, animated dancing stick man. These have all come from somewhere, and I've just thought, oh, that might work. I'll stick it in. Words that should be used more. I'm not quite sure. what that is. But some of them I managed to do, and I ticked them off. I did one on Mr. Tickle. So if you know the Mr. Men, Mr. Tickle's got really long arms. I did a very silly viz around that where you sort of make his arms move. This one actually stumped the Flurledge twins. They weren't sure how I did it. It's actually really, really simple. It's just 2 lines, one on top of each other. The black one's slightly thicker than the orange one, so it's a lot less tricky than it looks. I did this classic one. It didn't work quite as well as I thought. I wanted the eyes to follow the mouse. It's just sort of moving around the screen, but it wasn't that performant. It took a bit too long for it to work. But you know, you got to try these things. And then Karma Chameleon, he comes, he goes. Just what do I do? What am I doing? But sometimes it works. I got a visit a day for a ridiculous idea recently, which ticked off 2 on my list: magnifying glass and consult ant on ants, which may not make any sense, but my Twitter handle is consult ant. My name is Ant, and I just thought I must be able to do something with that. So I did a very silly viz, which was you had to magnify an ant, and you got some details about that ant. Very silly. Somehow it got visit of the day. It's even got a picture of an AI generated version of me as an ant that you can zoom in on as well. So it does sometimes work for the good. And that was that. And I hope you enjoyed it. A small insight into what I do on Tableau Public. Any questions?
Oh, thanks, Ann. That was fantastic. That was incredibly entertaining, and those are just so cool. I think, I don't know, the super fan of me really likes the Mario one the best. I think I really like the Mario one a lot. That one's pretty cool. Yeah, we can open it up for questions. I guess I had one quick question. So, when I guess what is the process from design to implementation? Is it more of a like a percentage breakdown, like you spend 30% actually designing it and then you do it, or is it a little more mashed together where it's more like I'm really hacking away the whole time to get it to figure it out?
It varies a little bit. I usually have some idea of what I'm doing. I'll usually sketch in OneNote a rough idea of what's going on. A lot of the time, I can't necessarily get it doing what I was thinking of doing in the first place. So it ends up, as everything does, changing over time. I probably spend most of my time hacking around with it rather than on the design side. I would say for most of the vizzes. That's not to say I don't design all of them. If that answers your question.
Yeah. I mean, are you and follow up? Are you constantly publishing it to public to just make sure that there is that? Or you probably know a lot of the incompatibilities and stuff now, or nuances, right? So, or is it a lot of back and forth? You probably need to check, or else you could just back yourself into a corner.
Yeah, I usually, if it's animation particularly, I will publish to public early just to make sure nothing's not working. But I think most of the things I'm doing now, usually that I know if it's going to work or not on public. Most stuff does. It's only the odd thing that can throw you out occasionally. There's always something new that won't do what you expect.
Very cool. Well, Homer, do we have any questions from the group?
I don't have any from the group, but I had one myself.
Sure.
This has been a lot of fun, and I really. But first thing I want to know is your employer paying you to do this stuff? Because if he is, then I want to apply.
Yeah.
Sadly not. I work for a bank as well, so yeah, I don't think they can really. No.
But
it's pretty much.
It's a segue to a real question: is have you ever used animation in any of your Tableau work at Lloyd's to make the presentation more interesting, to highlight an important trend or fact, or just to help grab the audience's attention?
Yes. I mean, animation's a funny one. You've got to be a bit careful where you use it because it can probably be overused. But I have used it at certain points, particularly in I've done a few, I don't want to call them dashboards, but sort of where we're presenting the output of a project in a sort of interactive way. That's when it's worked really well. And I've done a few. One I did was with network charts, and I was able to sort of animate what happens when you add nodes and things to network charts, and that it's things like that where it works quite well to sort of show how things are moving. So I have used it. I wouldn't probably use it by default because you don't want it to sort of cloud anything else, but it can be very useful in certain circumstances.
Because, you know, sometimes a movie just explains it better than a still,
Yes.
you know.
Yeah.
Well, there's the classic TED talk on the best stats you've ever seen. The guy's name escapes me, where he's got the animated bubble map of population sort of densities, and it's like that was sort of quite a big moment in storytelling and how you can do things differently.
Yeah. I had a question. As far as, I mean, you mentioned techniques like, you know, or hacks like animations, parameters, obviously those. Are there maybe 2 or 3 other ones that you find yourself using pretty commonly to achieve these, you know, awesome visualizations you have? Or
Yeah, I mean, so obviously dynamic zone visibility was pretty big when it came in. It's obviously it's been around for a while now. It hasn't been around that long at Lloyd's where I work because we're a bit behind in terms of versions. But when that's come in, suddenly that opens a lot of options in terms of how you do it. So I've got a viz I've been working on for ages on Final Fantasy game, which I've just gone all in on dynamic zone visibility. So that's a really fun one to play around with, and also the dynamic axis ranges. I think that potentially adds an element. So where I've been fixing my axis a lot to make my animations work, actually with the dynamic axis ranges, can you do something different with that and make animations a bit more interesting? I've yet to play as much with that, but I think that could be good.
Yeah, that's cool. Yeah. Dynamic zone visibility really was a game changer. That was for sure, even in business, right? So,
yeah, absolutely.
Yeah. Hummer, any other questions?
Yeah, I had another question. I'm on a roll today. You haven't noticed? I want you to tell me the favorite feature that Tableau has added that helps you with animations. And I want you to tell me the most wanted feature that you're waiting for them to add.
Or that helps with animation in particular.
Yeah, in particular.
It probably will be. I mean, animation on its own when it came in was very helpful. But other than that, I mean, it hasn't really changed that much since that came in. But maybe a
capability that unlocked the potential to do animations in a new way that you couldn't before. Was there any moment in the past that happened where all of a sudden you say, "Oh, I could do something with this," and you did it?
It's not that I've done yet. I don't think. I think the dynamic axis ranges is going to be one of the things I'm going to play around with more, because I think that opens up a bit of an option to sort of change the way animation works. What I'd like to be able to do, so obviously you can do pages where you can sort of have a set, you know, timeline of things that will happen, and that could be animated or whatever, or you can press a button and the animation will change. What I'd love, and I don't think it would ever be on the roadmap, is the ability to sort of almost program a couple of steps, so almost like a 2 or 3 stage parameter. So I want to do this, then this, then this, but that's something like, you know, change the parameter this to this, and then 2 seconds later change it to this. That I would love, because that gives you the control of parameters, but with the sort of the page's ability to sort of go through a story. So I think something like that would be really cool. I'm not sure it's a very high priority for them, but that would be a nice one.
That would be cool.
But a dynamic axis would let you zoom in on data, for example. Like if you ever use video editing software and you're looking at the audio portion of it, okay? And let's say, you're doing a podcast, you want to take out the ums and the ahs and the awkward pauses. You want to stretch out that timeline so you can really very accurately cut those things out. So if you apply that to a graph, you know, where you see a trend maybe changing very quickly, and you want to zoom in and say, when did that exactly happen? Was there like a singular event that caused that inflection? Being able to stretch that axis could be very useful.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah. Well, cool. Well, we'll wrap up with one last question. So, I guess do you get a lot of requests? Do you take requests for ideas? Do you get any inbound requests from the public or
Suggestions or anything?
Yeah, the occasional one. So that Consult AMP one sort of came out of, it wasn't a request, but I presented at a London user group, and I gave them a list of some of my ideas, and I said, what should I do next? And so they didn't request the idea as such, but they sort of said, yeah, please do that one because that sounds fun. So actually the Mario, to be fair, the Mario one was a request from a colleague. He said, can you do a Mario viz? So that one was a request, and that's one of my, maybe I should do it more because that went down really well.
Yeah, that's awesome. That's my favorite. Yeah, so I guess if you guys are out there, if you got an idea,
I got one.
Yeah.
Take the Mario and turn it into a Rubik's Cube.
Oh, nice. So Brian Moore's done a Rubik's Cube.
Yeah.
I'm sure it's Brian Moore. I'm not sure it's animated. That's the challenge. If you can like animate these things, that makes it
that'd be
degrees
cool.
harder.
Yeah. Well, and thank you so much for presenting. I know it's late over where you are, but let's everybody give Anne a virtual round of applause, and thank you very much. We'd love to have you back again sometime.
Thank you very much. Thank you for having me.
All right.
Hans
Awesome.
Rosling. That's right. Yep.